Good evening, folks. Well, I tell you, it's way different yesterday. We had a big, strong cold front, which I imagine most of it's hit you guys by now, and we went from the low 70s to 39 degrees with a wind, 27-degree wind chill. I don't know, for all y'all that are kind of getting in on this late, not counting family. It started out just being family, and now it's kind of turned into something else because I shared it on a Facebook and people are liking it. And I think a lot of it's got to do with the fact that we're all just hunkered in and we're all about reminiscing and influencing people that's influenced your lives. And so for those of y'all that are just kind of getting in on this, I promised my family I would text something or put something out there every day about my brother Roger passing, and most of y'all knew him. And if he knew you, be honest with you, if you knew my brother, your family. Matter of fact, our motto at the Kirk House, if any of you guys used to know, I remember Brian Powell, that was his mom and dad. Called my mom and dad. And you guys in DCAB know who Brian Powell is. Anyway, when you were at the Kirk House, RB Kirk and Barbara Kirk House, their motto was, and they would tell you when you got there, that if you've been here more than 5 minutes, you're no longer company. You're on your own. So, and they meant it, and they meant it in a good way. And that was not what they weren't going to wait on you, because they would serve you hand and foot. The whole time you're there. But if you needed to get up and go get something yourself, you just go get up. Go get in the kitchen, grab you something to eat, didn't matter. You were family. And, that's always been our motto, and that's kind of who I've kind of migrated to people like that. My best friend, Bill Bevan, his family's that way, the Bevan family. I wasn't there 5 minutes, and it's like I was family. So, and that was back in the 70s, and here we are, still best friends, and his kids call me Uncle Ward. It kind of reminds me of my mom and dad. And my dad grew up with Devo Bollinger. And we always called him Uncle Devo, but it was my cousin, my dad's cousin. So, we've all been close and just close-knit family like that on the Kirk side. I talked about yesterday, influence with my brother and big influences and how my dad and Uncle James were Navy recruiters in Mena, Arkansas. And my dad started out in Fayetteville, then went to Arkansas, then to Mena. And then as he's getting his last tour of duty, about to finish his career, my Uncle James is coming up, his younger brother, and he kind of had a transition there where they took over. And so they were recruiters. I think the first time in this Navy history. But still, we were going on to the Bahamas, and that's what I was going to talk to you about, the influence of my brother. I was 7, and Roger was 13, and my little brother was a year. And, we all went over there to the Bahamas, and it was just a whole nother world. It was just a child, trust me, a young child or even older, like my brother's 13, it was paradise. It was an island of Eleuthera. And on west side, east side of it, you could say, kind of where it was at, was the Atlantic Ocean. And on the west side was the Caribbean, it's where they meet. And so the Atlantic side just crashed in and crashed out. The Caribbean side just eased in and eased out every day. It was crystal clear water. Even the Atlantic was crystal clear. It was parallel. We lived there almost 2 years. But we had no television, and I really, really think that that's been the downfall of man in this modern era, is electronics, television in particular. I think Romans 8:28 says God takes all things and works them to the good of those who love Him and do His work. I think in that sense that God can, He can do anything. He uses those things to His good. But as a distraction, a deterrent, and also to spin lies and stuff that aren't true, the television's dangerous, and so we have to be careful with it. But we had no television, and all we had was radio. And so we had to entertain ourselves in big time. And, my mom had a little one. He's barely a year old. I don't even think he was a year old when we got there. And so Bobby was born in 61. I think we were there by the time we were there in 62. It was our first year there. And so barely, he was almost a year, not quite a year when we got there. But anyway, so we get there. So it's me and Roger. Here I am, 7 years old. He's 13. And we both went to private school. Well, there was a private school for teenagers, and it was like very, very expensive. And then there was seventh grade and up. So my mom homeschooled Roger, and which, in my opinion, really influenced Roger. My mother was, you talking about Roger being extremely intelligent. My mom was, I think my mom could have been a doctor. Her brother was a doctor, but that was a different era. My mom was extremely intelligent lady, and I think that's where he got a lot of it from. I really do. Not that my dad wasn't intelligent, because he was too. He was just a hard-working son of a gun. But Roger was homeschooled by my mom. And I thought I was going to get the homeschool, but they had this little school in a little bitty town called Hatchet Bay. And the school overlooked this bay. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And the windows behind the teachers showed the deal. So I think that's where my attention deficit started right there, because she'd be trying to teach and I'm looking out the back window like, holy cow, I want to go swimming. But anyway, so that's where it was. But my schooling, not to get away too much what this is about, which is Roger, but my schooling there was like your parents talk about, where they had one room, 12 grades, and one teacher, all in one room. So when she got there, you started in the first grade, and I was in the second at the time. So the first grade, you would have assignments the night before. You'd have to stay busy, and it was in English. It was all English too, by the way. You drove on the left-hand side of the road, not the right-hand side of the road. They had English shillings and da. It was English rule back then. So we had an English teacher named Miss Saxton, which was as mean as she could be. At least I thought she was. But they would teach us, and they'd start with the first grade, and you had to sit there and listen to it. And then she'd give them assignments. There's like 2 or 3 in each class, to be honest with you. Sixth grade was 4. So there's an average of 4 or 5 in every class, from 1 through 6. So, do the math.